Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and I am so excited to be celebrating 10 years of meaningful conversations with you. As we step into our new primetime hour, it's such an honor to share this exciting new chapter with you. So whether you're starting your day out, headed to work, or listening from wherever you are, this hour is designed to bring you thoughtful dialogue, fresh insight, and inspiring stories so you can make every moment count. So thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive in. We're here today with special guest, Dr. Cindy McGovern, who's here to share with us her new book, The Permission Mission: Reclaiming the Power to Trust Your Own Voice. So have you been waiting for permission to speak up, lead, or even pursue what you really want in life? Well, today's guest is here to share with us how to do just that. Dr. Cindy McGovern is the first Lady of Sales, an internationally recognized speaker and the founder and CEO of Orange Leaf Consulting and Orange Leaf Academy. She is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author whose work helps people sell their ideas, advocate for their value, and show up with confidence without waiting for someone else to hand them permission. So welcome to the show, Dr. Cindy McGovern.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh my goodness, what a great honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. What inspired you to write this?
You know, I work with so many incredible women and men, but I find that we get in our heads and we hold ourselves back. And it was just a pattern that I kept noticing. And I thought, gosh, these are just incredible, amazing women who are in power positions a lot of times, C-suite executives sometimes, who are in their own way. And I just couldn't let it happen anymore. And I said, I've got to write this book because if these women are dealing with this, imagine how many other millions of folks are dealing with the same thing. And so it was really important to me to bring this message out so that we could all talk about it, bring it to light, and help each other and help support each other.
Well, I love that you bring this perspective of a communication expert to the table as we talk about this. And so when you talk about waiting for permission, is that just in life? Is that at work? Where is that exactly?
Yes, yes, and yes. I think we do this a lot. It's it's everywhere. I think that we are taught this as kids that we wait for permission from our parents, from our grandparents, from our teachers. And it's a lesson that we carry forward and we sort of keep waiting and we create guardrails for ourselves later. And it's conditioned. And so we inadvertently end up holding ourselves back because we've put sort of this invisible velvet rope in front of our growth, in front of ourselves. And we don't allow ourselves to walk through it. And that is the opportunity that I bring forth in the book. And that's what I want to talk about with everyone is getting us to drop that velvet rope. You've got the power. It's been within you all along, but we've put that there because of the way that we were conditioned, the way that we were brought up, the lessons that we were taught. And it's not necessary. It's invisible. So if it's invisible, walk right through it.
Well, I love how you start your book off with chapter 1. I wish I had said something, anything, and I think so many people can relate to that in different points of our lives going, I gosh, I wish I would have spoken up. Or we go back and think about the things we could have said. What are some ways that we can really be more powerful and intentional with our voice in situations?
Gosh, I feel like this happens to me all the time where you think of it, 10 minutes later, 10 hours later. And a lot of it is around recognizing that first of all, have a voice that can be used and giving ourselves that permission to use it instead of silencing ourselves and trusting our voice to know that she knows what to say or he knows what to say. And giving that authority to our voice, because I think that's the challenge, is that we kind of silence that voice so often. We kind of stamp it down and say, no, 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 not going to speak up. Now's not the right time. Or if you were conditioned, children are here to be seen and not heard. And these are lessons you take into midlife and beyond. So that's what ends up happening is we are conditioned in our lives and in our childhood, you don't ever want to make anybody else feel uncomfortable. So that's why you don't speak up. Or you're conditioned that, well, gosh, give everybody else a chance to speak. Or you might not have the best thing to say, so wait until you're 100% certain. These are all lessons that are swirling around in our minds that keep us silent, keep us playing small. But if you just trust that that voice knows, and that voice really does have something to say, and that contribution could really spark ideas from others, that contribution might actually begin a conversation at that table that could bring forth other ideas and really powerful ideas. Give yourself permission, and then that could really be that catalyst for something really big. But we just don't trust it. We don't trust that that voice could actually be that powerful.
Is that what you mean by the backup singers, or is that a different metaphor?
Those backup singers are those voices exactly in our minds. They are the influences that were given to us throughout our lives, and we hold on to them. They become these voices in the back of our minds. And I call them the backup singers because we hear them. They echo. They're the internal voices from childhood, mentors, sometimes even societal expectations. But the key is to get them singing in harmony, is to recognize which ones of those voices are still serving us versus which ones maybe are not serving us any longer. And I talk about in the book, and I talk about a lot, that my grandmother's voice is still a very loud voice for me. And she was very important in my childhood. She taught me how to look both ways before crossing the street. And she taught me, not to put my hand on a hot stove. But she also had very different expectations of a woman's role than I had for myself growing up. She grew up in the 1920s. We're in the 2020s right now, as we're talking today. Very, very different roles, very, very different expectations of women. And so as I was growing up, she was really trying to cast upon me the expectations that she had growing up and the expectations of women of her generation that didn't fit for me. I didn't want to get married, have kids, stay home, do all the things that she had done. That didn't fit. So I have to sort of negotiate in my own mind. Thank you for teaching me to look both ways before crossing the street. Thank you for teaching me not to touch a hot stove. But when it comes to some of those other expectations, I have to thank her for her opinion, but also disagree. And then have her take a step back in the chorus of my mind, because some of that just does not fit for me. And those backup singers can be really loud, and some of them even hold us back because we allow them to.
What a key piece that is, especially when we're hearing the voice of someone that we love dearly that's giving us advice, because we can hear them doing that over and over again when they were here with us. And to be able to make a distinction like, this works for me, that really doesn't, what a big difference that makes.
And it's so hard because we respect them and we love them and we value their opinions. So we don't want to throw out the good with the bad, but we do have to delineate between what really is a good piece of advice and what piece of advice maybe we've outgrown, and recognizing that that wasn't a fit for her, but maybe that isn't, right for us. And there's a great story that I learned about my grandmother. I was in graduate school and we had to do an interview of a woman that was different generationally from us. And I was interviewing her, and one of the questions was, what was her dream career when she was younger? And I never knew this about my grandmother. She wanted to be a doctor. And I never, ever knew that. And I just stopped me dead in my tracks, and I asked her more about it. And she didn't do it because Women didn't do that back then. And it hit me. And I said, oh my gosh, like that just, it explained everything in that one moment. Women didn't do that back then. She just went along with the norms.
Well, and it's really interesting when you look at different eras, what was allowed and what wasn't, and how difficult it would have been for her to push against that. I mean,
Yeah.
but to hold those dreams within her, my goodness.
Yeah. And it was incredible to see the look on her face and as she told that story. But it was remarkable for me because I never knew that. And I was in my 20s when I learned that. And the fact that she had never spoken about it ever.
What a real powerful just experience that must have been sitting there with her and listening to that. How was it afterwards? What did she express afterwards?
You know, great question. I could see on her face there was such regret, but also I think a part of her felt relief to be able to actually speak that, to be able to speak the truth that this was what she had actually wanted, because I think she had carried that secret with her for so long because she had never spoken about it. And I'd even spoken to their family members and asked them if they knew, and they said, "You're kidding! Like Granny wanted to do that? No one ever knew." And it was sort of like her secret wish that she never shared, which really made me sad for her. But I think in a way, she finally was able to speak about it and that she had always wanted to do that, but didn't have maybe the grit to go after it.
What a powerful story, my goodness. And one of the things you write in your book that kind of made me think about just it kind of dovetails with what we're talking about, and especially for women, because there's so much that's placed upon us, but the imposter syndrome is it seems like when women are dealing with levels of self-worth, especially in the workplace. I've heard a lot of people talk about this recently. Is this something you see all the time?
Oh gosh, yes. And imposter syndrome, I think, gets a bit of a bad rap because there's so much study and so much conversation about imposter syndrome, and most of the magazines, most of the journal articles that you read, they say, "Oh, tell her to sit down and be quiet." I don't agree with that. I actually think imposter syndrome is quite healthy because if you truly think about imposter syndrome, it only shows up when you're uncomfortable. Imposter syndrome only creeps in when you're growing, when you're at the edge of that comfort zone, and when you're trying something new. So I actually think that if you are pushing your own boundary, if you are stretching yourself, imposter syndrome is present. And it's a reminder that you're at that edge. So and I talk about this in the book, but I often will tell people she should be your constant co pilot. That if you really are trying to push and grow, give her a nickname and tell her to strap in, Buttercup. We're going to do this thing. Like, let's go. Because if you really want to bust out of your comfort zone and you really want to do something new, you need to not only expect her, but you need to invite her on the journey.
Well, I'll have to keep that in mind. And I think it keeps us a little humble too, in some ways.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And again, I think it's a good thing because it's a nice gut check that, okay, do I mean to be here? It's a bit of a danger check of, okay, am I safe? Should I be here? Is this okay? But it is that reminder that this is new. This is a new place, and that's okay. And just making sure this is still where I want to be. Yep. Okay, let's go do this then.
Well, I'd like to talk about the topic of courage. I think so many
Mm,
people believe that like courageous leaders, they're natural and confident, fearless. But I understand you really kind of challenge that idea. Why do you say
mm.
courage is actually a skill rather than a personality trait?
So it's funny because I hear that all the time. People are like, "Oh, well, good leaders are born that way. They're born courageous." And I don't agree with that. I do think it's a skill set. I do think it's something kind of like a practice. Like you practice yoga, you practice courage. And I think it's developed over time. You develop it by making decisions, by speaking up, by setting, boundaries for yourself and by doing things, just like any other skill set. And when you treat courage like it is a skill, then we can learn it. And this is where I think we underestimate people. We think, oh, well, only extroverts are courageous. I disagree with that. I think introverts can be courageous as well too. It is about growing into that skill set. And when I was a college professor, I taught public speaking. And people would say, oh, well, only extroverts are good at public speaking. And I said, that's not true at all. I said, it's a skill set. People can learn this. It takes planning, it takes practice, and it takes courage. And I said, oh, well, people are born with that. I said, no, they're not. I said, some people may be born with that, but that is also a skill set. And so, I've had incredibly introverted students get very good at public speaking because they had a good plan, they practiced, they knew what they were going to say when they got up there, they did their research, and they did very well as public speakers because they learned courage.
I think that's so encouraging for so many people who are in positions where learning courage is something that they can do as opposed to something that they are born with. So,
Yeah. I mean, think about things that we've done in our own lives, right? Maybe you had to get up and give a speech at work the first time, and the first time your knees were shaking and your palms were sweaty. And by the fifth time you did it, it wasn't as bad. Or the first time you ever had to, if you were a physician, the first time you ever had to do an operation, or the first time you ever had to go and stand in front of the PTA. Any of these things. The first time is scary, but you learned how to do it. You learned courage. We just don't think of it that way, but we've all done it and we've all improved.
it's just that practice, getting out and
Hmm.
doing that practice and honing our skill set.
Absolutely.
I love how in your book you talk about the importance of celebrating small wins. Why are small moments of progress so powerful for motivation and confidence? And can you share with us what a small win might be?
Yeah. I think we delay joy in our lives. I really do. And I think it's gotten worse as time has gone on. I think we wait and we celebrate the big O birthdays instead of every birthday. And I think we wait until the big promotion instead of the fact that, we made it to Tuesday. I am a big fan of celebrating the small things. And I don't know if it's that I had lost my parents at a younger age or, some, tragedy that happened. And so you end up looking at every day differently. But I really do think celebrating small wins matters. And the reason is because it is a motivator. It is an opportunity to see progress, not perfection, and not the end. Because I don't actually think there is an end. I think it's always growth. And so there's not this definitive finish line, in my opinion. I think it's always evolving. So I think it's very important for us to celebrate those little steps along the way. And if you think about like we do this with children, when babies are learning to walk, they barely lift a leg and put a foot down for a half a second, and it's like you want to throw a parade. And that's amazing. And then when they, do take that first step, everybody in the whole house is just cheering. Great. You're celebrating a small win. The first A on a paper. Yay, small win. The first time somebody hits a baseball. Yay, small win. Why do we stop celebrating as we get older? Why do we not continue that? And I don't know if it's that we get busy, we get distracted, we believe that we have to be these martyrs in order to get joy. I don't know what happened, but I don't buy it. And I don't want anybody else to buy it either. I think that we should celebrate the small things, celebrate the fact that you answered your 10 emails before you finished your cup of coffee, whatever it is for you. Celebrate the small wins. Don't delay joy. There's absolutely no reason for it. I don't know where that rule came from, but I say we all break it together.
I love that, and I'm with you on it too. So
Perfect.
I'm not sure what happened where at some point they're like, "Oh, you can't have fun anymore. You shouldn't
Right.
celebrate just life and joy." I mean, I'm not sure at what stage that became the norm.
Right. Like what happened? We used to have all these great things and then I don't know, but I don't like it. So I say we go back to it, Marianne. Let's start our own movement.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. Well, I understand. I mean, you work with some just leaders and great organizations to help them create environments where people feel safe to speak up and really share ideas without fear. So, what are some ideas and how do you even do that?
So a lot of it is around creating that environment truly and helping them to recognize that everybody has superpowers, as I call them, and create a space that everybody can bring their superpowers to the table. And it starts with leadership, absolutely, within an organization and helping the leaders to be vulnerable. And I think vulnerability is a big part of it. Is nobody's perfect and nobody does this life alone. And I say that all the time. So if the leader is willing to show their own vulnerability and the leader is willing to share their journey and create a space where others can share their ideas and share their vulnerabilities and invite everyone to bring their superpowers. That's really the place that it starts. But also celebrating that joy and celebrating those small contributions and also celebrating failure. And this is something that we don't do as well. I think it's very important to celebrate trying. And sometimes trying is that it didn't work, but that's okay because without that, we have no forward momentum. And I think we also forget that. You know, we can all read articles about how many times Einstein failed before he invented things, but we forget about it. We just think of all the inventions. So I think it's important that we create a space where people are willing and feel empowered to try things.
Well, and I like how we would actually celebrate the things that don't work out so well because aren't those great opportunities for us to learn? Is that the idea?
Absolutely. And again, it's the trying. It's let's bring all the ideas out. One of the things we do at my company is a lot of times we'll do a full group brainstorm on something. And we're a completely remote company. We have been for 19 years. And I literally will send an email to the whole team and say, okay, we're working on this. Everybody go. Throw stuff out there. And sometimes the wackiest of the idea is the thing that actually sparks an idea for everybody. And maybe it doesn't work out, but it ends up becoming an inside joke. It ends up becoming a joke that lasts for years later. You never know where these things are going to go. And sometimes it ends up being the thing that sparks some great idea that ends up working. So you just don't know. I say throw it out there and see what happens.
Do you ever get people who are afraid to take a step forward because they feel like stepping into the spotlight is just really too scary for them?
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. And that the shadow feels familiar. And it's funny because we call it a comfort zone, but it's really not. It's a familiar zone. But for most people, it's actually quite uncomfortable. They're not happy there, but it's just the fact that it's familiar. So that's something that I talk about in the book, is your desire for something else has to be greater than your fear of going after it. And if it's not, you're never going to change. But it is that piece of, do I really want to change or am I happy being here? And this is something that I also ask people because a lot of people will complain about being in that shadow. They'll complain about not going into the spotlight and they'll blame it on, circumstance, they'll blame it on all these things and they have these wonderful stories about being a victim. But if you do have a choice and you can make a step forward into the spotlight, you are no longer a victim, you're a volunteer. So you have to change the narrative on that.
I love that. I love that. It really moves us out of that victim space because who wants to be there? No one wants to stay there. Into a place where we're an active participant.
Mm-hmm. But nobody wants to hear that. They don't like when we say that. So, but it is the truth. It's like if you can move forward, and you know you can move forward, but you're choosing to stay there, you're not a victim.
So, for our listeners that maybe have been holding themselves back or they're just playing small, what is one step that they can take today to really own their own permission mission?
Start with why. Why are you there? And ask yourself, is it a choice? Have you actually chosen this, or are you letting the backup singers call the shots? And I call that cleaning out your emotional closet. Because for many of us, we don't even know. We've never stopped to think about it. It just is where we are. And I've even got a friend who, down to the things that she even eats, she won't try stuff because she was told her whole life she didn't like them. And one day I finally asked her, I was like, "Do you even like this? Have you ever had it?" She goes, "No, but my mother didn't like it." And I said, "Well, then how do you know if you like it or not? You never even had it." So I finally started getting her to try stuff. Turns out she liked a whole lot of things. But because she was literally told her whole life she didn't like it because her mother didn't like it. She didn't like cheesecake, or at least she thought she didn't. Cheesecake's delicious, but she had never tried it. So little things like that, like we tell ourselves these stories. So clean out your emotional closet. Get really clear. Is this your story that someone else told you? Or is it really your own story? Are you holding the pen, or has somebody else been holding the pen this whole time? And then decide for yourself, what's one thing you do want to change, and then make a step forward in your own permission mission and give yourself permission to make that change.
That's just so remarkable to live a life where someone else has dictated what you like, what you don't, and to get to a place where you could separate that and have your own likes, dislikes, your own life. I mean, what a sense of freedom.
Right? And it's so interesting when you think about it, but we don't really give ourselves that permission. We just sort of keep going through life because we haven't ever stopped to think about it. And it can be really remarkable when we do. And that emotional closet can be very, uh, very heavy if we're not careful.
Well, Dr. Cindy, where can people go to connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
drcindy.com is the best place to find me, or at 1ST Lady of Sales on social media.
Well, Dr. Cindy, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much, Marianne. It was such a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cindy McGovern. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Permission Mission. Reclaim your power to trust your own voice. Make sure to visit Dr. Cindy's website at drcindy.com for more information on her work, her amazing books, and to be part of her community. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.